Hello and welcome to EvilGinger Miniatures, where I'm going to be prattling and possibly distracted because there's a premiere going on in the background which I've really wanted to watch and wouldn't have scheduled this through, but it happened to be cancelled and restarted. I had a plan which involved the arrival of those just fiddle with the beard a little bit. I may need to do some trimmage. Anyway, which involved fiddling with the these models, which I built after last week, because I thought I would have the magnifiers and I could do the cleaning up and discuss various bits and pieces as I was doing it. But I can't see well enough, and I definitely can't see well enough to finish various other bits that are more complicated and build the World War I soldiers who have got that far. So that was the plan. I would get the ×4 clip-on magnifiers, even though I didn't have the times for glasses. These are ×3.5, I think. So I would still be dealing with a decent level of magnification. And I could have spent the time scraping things with knives and clipping things and whatever. However, thank you, Yodel. No arrival of stuff. So plan B had to occur. Plan B is this, which arrived with the Reaper order. Now these are Reaper freebies. I've already opened them and I think there are pictures on the page of the painting group about them. But these are, thank you very much for buying stuff, and would be painted up and intend to go on the Etsy shop. What they have on every month depends on Reaper and the amount you buy. And I just picked them at random when I was ordering because I wasn't ordering figures, I was just ordering paint. So there are multiples. These are, in fact, there are several of these because I thought they would be useful. Bits and pieces of modern scatter for modern scenery. I got several of those. That's 2 of them. I'm showing you both because the sprues are the other way around. These are Bones Black, which is a harder acrylic resin to the normal bones, to the white bones. This is also Bones Black, and this figure I've got somewhere in my own collection. So this one is going to get based and get painted and go on the Etsy shop. This is a reproduction of an original metal figure, which is in the hard grey acrylic. Nice stuff about that is that you don't have to prime it. You just have to put a coat of ordinary acrylic paint on it, because if you don't, it picks up grease and fingers and you get problems and the paint doesn't stick. This one is the old Bones White, which is more bendy, but otherwise pretty much identical. Some people argue it doesn't keep the detail quite so crisp, but I've not noticed this. Again, this is a reproduction of a figure originally produced in white metal, which was the original idea of Bones. And we have another nice figure there, again in Bones Black. That will get painted up when I'm back to painting and go on the Etsy store as a thing. And this one, again, another figure, but this one needs a little bit of hot water. As you can see, the sword is bent. Bones Black works just as well with the hot water trick, which is dumping them in boiling water or near boiling water, and then straightening the bent bit out and then dumping them in cold water. It's just that Bones Black, as opposed to Bones White, the temperature has to be hotter. So be careful. Again, it's a good way of getting your hands scalded if you're not careful. So I'm putting all those back. And I'm going to go through the other box. Now, I'm not good at putting these back in because these are very well packed, and I'm not very good at packing. That's it. That's it. That's all packed up again. Now, what's in the other box is likely to be similar. But it will include the 3D printed stuff. And I'll just empty it out. That's more of the bottles. Again, you can see some bits have come off the sprue, so you can probably see them. So it's jerry cans and traffic cones and that sort of thing. That's more of them. That way you can see the traffic cones that are at the top. This is a classic figure. I've actually got my own collection of lead, but this is the Bones black version of him. He's a gnome spellcaster, and I really like the figure. And that spell effect is actually one of the better spell effects. These came, as I said, directly from the States. That's the 3D printed one, which I will save to tomorrow. And again, it's the steampunk guy with the foil on his back. Very Iron Kingdoms-ish stuff. And these will go back in here. Now this one is a little vignette. Probably can't see it, but this is 3D printed, I believe. It's an adventurer and a thief opening a chest. And I think it's called Teamwork. This is 3D printed and is from the Bones USA range, which, as I say, is 3D printed. And I've not actually had any of these painted because they are, and this is going in my own collection because it's a one an order sort of thing. So you're not going to be able to get this one unless you order directly from Reaper. And at the moment, Reaper are a little bit on the problematic side with ordering because you can only order from the States. And as I found out to my cost, that's really not cost effective under most circumstances, which is why I'm doing the freebies, painting the freebies to the Etsy shop, which I'm going to get re-going. And then I'm going to caffeine, because as I say, there's a 3.5 hour premiere going on in the background, muted, which I want to be back on, and I've got to be awake for. I have a horrible habit of going to sleep, so cheers. On the subject of me getting back to painting other people's stuff, I'm not doing any more commission stuff, but the things that I've got sitting around that are in process will be started on as soon as I get the glasses and the magnifiers. I may start earlier than that if I can do it with the clip-ons on these or the clip-ons on the other 3.5 or 3 magnifying glasses that go floating around. But I thought I would have a refresh. I have got 3 sets of clip-ons at X4 on the way. Should have been here today, as I say. And I've got 3 times of sets of glasses X4. And I've also got to organise myself an eye test so I can actually have a normal one. I want to see how much some reading glasses will cost in glass with toughened lenses, because they are so much more robust than the acrylic lenses. And unlike the acrylic lenses, they will absolutely not damage if you get paint on them. Because whilst you can get paint off acrylic paint off acrylic, you will not get this trying not to die from coughing. You won't get the frosting, as it actually bonds with acrylic really well. Acrylic paint on acrylic materials, hence being able to put a base coat of just standard paint on the bones material rather than having to faff around with primer. In fact, it's not a good idea to use conventional primers on the bones material because it can cause reaction, and frequently that reaction is that the paint doesn't dry properly, and I've seen paint that's remained sticky and not dried for periods of over a year. This is particularly true of spray primers, even if they say they're acrylic based like the army painter ones. I had to do very scary things with cleaning agents to one, and I don't want to do that to anybody ever again. Lisa makes it ranks with rebasing stuff. That's not a thing I want to do ever for any reason ever again. Given that I'm a bit fragile in the mental health department, I didn't need things that cause me that level of stress. Haven't done much in the office, but very shortly I will be getting a shredder, and I will be feeding all of the shredding that is required to be done through the shredder. And that means I can do my filing, and that's another job out of the way that has been sitting and getting to me, and then I can move back downstairs and start doing actual work in the workshop. I may be looking for a volunteer for that. We will see. Anyway, I can't think of anything else I need to talk about. I would have talked about magnification a bit more had I got the things through the post, but it didn't. So that's where we're going to leave it. Hope you have a good evening, and I'll speak to you next Tuesday with a bit of luck. Take care and goodbye, everyone.